Elon Musk goes undercover at Tesla. You won't believe what he discovered. Elon Musk, the innovative billionaire, went undercover as an assembly line worker at his Tesla factory, and his discoveries were truly shocking. Musk's experience revealed production inefficiencies and untapped employee ingenuity, leading to an inspiring revolution in leadership and innovation. They said it couldn't be done. The titan of innovation, the man who dreams in rocket fuel and electric currents disappearing, vanishing into the very engine he built. But he did. Elon Musk shed the tailored suit for something far more practical. And what he found buried deep within the hum of the Tesla factory, it wasn't just about faulty bolts or production delays. It was something far more profound, something that could change everything you thought you knew about leadership. Trust me, you won't believe what he discovered. The clang of metal on metal was Anya's morning symphony, a jarring counterpoint to the quiet anxieties that coiled in her stomach. For 5 years, the sprawling Gigafactory had been her world, each shift a relentless ballet of robotic arms and human precision. She knew the rhythm of the assembly line like a heartbeat, could anticipate the subtle tremors of a machine about to falter. Today, though, the rhythm fell off. A low hum of discontent vibrated through the air, thick as the welding fumes. A new guy was shadowing her today. Dan, they'd said, transfer from another plant. He moved with an awkward curiosity, eyes wide as if witnessing an alien ritual. Anya, usually quick with a welcoming nod, offered only a curt acknowledgement. New faces came and went like sparks from a faulty wire. Rarely did they last. Too much pressure. Too little appreciation. All right, Dan, her supervisor, a gruff man named Marcus, barked, his voice barely audible over the din. Keep up. No room for sightseeing. Dan fumbled with the torque wrench, his movements hesitant. Ogno se presto soy. Another one who thought innovation sprang fully formed from the minds in the executive suites, oblivious to the sweat and strain that fueled the machines. She remembered the early days, the electrifying optimism, the belief that they were building the future. Now, the optimism felt threadbare, replaced by the gnawing pressure of impossible quotas and the metallic taste of unspoken frustrations. Like this, she said, her voice sharper than intended. She reached for the wrench, her calloused fingers guiding his. His hands were surprisingly soft, the hands of someone more accustomed to signing documents than wrestling with steel. A flicker of something, curiosity, crossed his face. Thanks, he mumbled, his gaze intense. It was unnerving, like being studied under a microscope. The shift wore on, a relentless tide of tasks. Anya moved with practiced efficiency, her mind a whirlwind of calculations, anticipating potential snags. She'd noticed a subtle misalignment in one of the robotic welders for weeks, a tiny hitch in its otherwise seamless movements. She'd flagged it to Marcus, but the response was always the same. Keep the line moving. We'll look at it later. Later never seemed to come until something broke catastrophically. Dan, surprisingly, was a quick study. He was clumsy at first, dropping bolts, his movements jerky. But he watched, listened, absorbed. He even asked questions, surprisingly insightful ones, about the flow of materials, the placement of tools. Questions that hinted at a deeper understanding than she'd expected. During the lunch break, the fluorescent lights of the break room buzzed with a weary energy. Anya sat with her usual crew, the conversation a familiar litany of complaints. Did you hear about the new software update? Leo, a wiry technician, grumbled, stirring his lukewarm coffee. It's making the robots spaz out even more. Yeah, and guess who gets to spend their weekend debugging code written by someone who's never set foot on this floor? Maria, her face etched with fatigue, retorted, her voice laced with sarcasm. Anya remained silent, the familiar ache of frustration settling in her chest. They were the ones who kept the machines humming, who knew the subtle nuances of each weld, the delicate calibration of every sensor. Yet, their voices rarely reached beyond these four walls. Decisions were made in sterile boardrooms, far removed from the realities of the factory floor. Dan sat quietly at their table, picking at a sad-looking sandwich. He listened intently, his gaze shifting from one speaker to another. It was unnerving, this quiet observation. Later that afternoon, it happened. The robotic welder, the one Anya had flagged, stuttered violently, sparks flying like angry fireflies. The line ground to a halt, the sudden silence amplifying the collective groan of the workers. "Damn it!" Marcus roared, his face flushed with anger. What the hell happened? Chaos erupted. Supervisors barked orders. Technicians scrambled with diagnostic tools. Anya watched, a grim satisfaction mixed with a surge of resentment. She'd seen this coming. Dan surprisingly didn't stand idly by. He was beside her, his brow furrowed in concentration. "What do you think it is?" he asked, his voice low. "The servo motor," Anya said without hesitation. "It's been miscalibrated. I told Marcus weeks ago." The bitterness in her voice was palpable. "Have you tried?" Dan started, then hesitated, as if unsure of overstepping. "Tried what?" Anya snapped, her patience fraying. "There's a bypass sequence," Dan said, his voice gaining confidence. "If you reroute the power through the auxiliary relay." Anya stared at him, her mind racing. It was a risky maneuver, bypassing safety protocols. But it could work. It was the kind of workaround born from years of troubleshooting, the kind of knowledge that never made it into the official manuals. "Get it fixed. Now!" Marcus bellowed, his eyes darting between the stalled machine and his anxious supervisors. Ignoring him, Anya met Dan's gaze. There was an intensity there, a spark of understanding that surprised her. "Show me," she said, her voice firm. Working together, a strange camaraderie forming between them, they navigated the intricate wiring of the robot. Dan's soft hands, surprisingly agile, followed her instructions. Minutes stretched into an eternity, the tension in the air thick enough to cut with a laser. Finally, with a final click, Anya rerouted the power. A low hum filled the air, the robotic arm whirred to life, and then, with a smooth, precise movement, resumed its welding. A collective sigh of relief swept through the line. Marcus stared, his jaw slack. "Well, what did you do?" "A temporary fix," Anya said, her gaze fixed on the still-working robot. "The servo motor needs replacing, but this will keep us going." "How did you know that?" Marcus demanded, his suspicion evident. Anya simply shrugged. She wasn't about to reveal that the idea had come from the new guy, the one who looked more comfortable in a boardroom than a factory. The next few days followed a similar pattern. Dan continued to shadow Anya, his initial awkwardness replaced by a quiet attentiveness. He asked questions, not with the detached curiosity of an observer, but with the genuine interest of someone trying to understand. He listened to the workers' complaints, their frustrations, their quiet moments of brilliance when they found innovative solutions to keep the line moving despite the limitations. He witnessed Leo jury-rigging a sensor with spare parts and sheer ingenuity, fixing a recurring glitch that had plagued the line for weeks. He saw Maria, during a rare moment of downtime, sketching out a redesign for a cumbersome tool, a design that would save time and reduce strain. These weren't isolated incidents. They were glimpses into a wellspring of untapped potential, a reservoir of knowledge that remained invisible to those at the top. One afternoon, during another break, the conversation turned to the faulty ventilation system, a perennial source of discomfort and complaints. "It's unbearable in the summer," another worker, Carlos, said, wiping sweat from his brow even in the air-conditioned room. "They keep saying they'll fix it, but nothing ever happens." "We even submitted a proposal last year," Maria chimed in, her voice laced with cynicism. "Detailed schematics, cost analysis, straight into the black hole of bureaucracy." Dan, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "What was the proposal?" Maria pulled up the schematics on her phone, a complex diagram of airflow and ductwork. Dan studied it intently, asking clarifying questions, his brow furrowed in concentration. Anya watched him, a seed of curiosity taking root. He was different. He wasn't just hearing their complaints, he was actively engaging with their solutions. The week culminated in the morning meeting, the usual ritual of production targets and safety reminders. "Excuse me, everyone," Dan said, his voice clear and carrying through the sudden hush. "My name isn't Dan." A ripple of confusion spread through the ranks. Marcus stared, his mouth agape. "My name is Elon Musk. A collective gasp swept through the room. Disbelief hung heavy in the air, punctuated by nervous whispers. Anya's heart pounded in her chest. Elon Musk? The visionary, the iconoclast? Done? He continued, his gaze sweeping across the stunned faces. I've spent the last week working alongside you, not as your boss, but as your colleague. And I have to tell you, what I've seen has been eye-opening. He spoke of the relentless pressure, the broken equipment, the disregarded suggestions. But then, his voice softened, a genuine admiration coloring his tone. He spoke of Leo's ingenious repair, Maria's insightful tool redesign, the detailed ventilation proposal that had been ignored. I saw firsthand the brilliance that exists on this floor, he said, his voice filled with emotion. The ingenuity, the dedication, the sheer grit that keeps this factory running. And I realized something profound. Leadership isn't just about making decisions from an office. It's about understanding, about listening, about working side by side with the people who are actually building our future. He paused, letting his words sink in. The ventilation proposal, he said, looking directly at Maria. It's brilliant. We're implementing it. Immediately. A wave of murmuring swept through the crowd. This time, not of confusion, but of astonishment and something akin to hope. And that's just the beginning. Elon continued, his voice gaining strength. We're creating a direct channel for your ideas, your concerns. No more black holes of bureaucracy. If you see a problem, if you have a solution, I want to hear it. We're forming a task force comprised of people from the factory floor to identify and address the systemic issues that are holding us back. He looked directly at Anya, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. The robotic welder, he said. Anya, you flagged that weeks ago. Why wasn't it addressed? Anya hesitated, surprised to be singled out. I told my supervisor, she stammered. He said they'd look into it. They will now, Elon said firmly. Effective immediately, we're implementing a new system for reporting maintenance issues, one that ensures they're addressed promptly and efficiently. Because your safety, your well-being, that's paramount. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't the heavy silence of frustration, but the charged silence of disbelief slowly giving way to the realization that something monumental had just happened. Elon Musk's undercover mission wasn't just a publicity stunt. It was a stark lesson in the true nature of leadership. It wasn't about grand pronouncements from on high, but about the quiet power of observation, the humility to learn from those on the ground, and the courage to dismantle the barriers that stifle innovation. The brilliance of Tesla doesn't reside solely in the engineering labs or the design studios. It's in the minds and hands of the people who build our cars, day in and day out. And until we truly listen to those voices, we're only operating at a fraction of our potential. The message is clear. True leadership isn't about dictating from above. It's about understanding, listening, and working alongside your team. Real innovation and lasting success don't just come from the boardroom. They emerge from every level of an organization, especially from those who are directly involved in the work. When employees are empowered, when their voices are heard, they don't just solve problems. They unleash a torrent of creative solutions, building a company that is not only more efficient but also deeply connected and resilient. The future of innovation isn't just about the technology we create, but about the human connections we forge. And that's a discovery worth believing in.